I'm going to be showing you how to take your broken compact highlighter, anything, from this to this. Now that's much better, so let's get started. So first off, you just want to take off all of the packaging. This is my Anastasia Beverly Hills Gleam Glow Kit, and it came broken, so I was so upset, but I found a way to fix it. So I took out the only one that wasn't broken and just left that on the side until I figured out all of these. So I'm starting with hard candy, and I kind of got it a little bit everywhere trying to get it up. So you just want to take the pan out of the case. Majority of pans nowadays, they're magnetic, so you shouldn't really have a problem. And then I just popped it in a little ramekin, just pop all of the broken bits in there, and I used the back end of a spoon to scrape out the remaining powder that was stuck to the pan. And you want to get as much as you can out so it looks better once you're done. Some people like to clean the pan afterwards, but I'm just leaving it how it is as I've scraped the majority of it out. Then you just want to crush up what is in the ramekin or bowl that you've got. You want it as sort of fine as possible, so get out all them big chunks and just, you know, crush that thing down, and it should end up looking something like this. And then you want to grab some surgical spirit. I'm using the one from Boots, and it should say about 90% ethanol, and that's what you want. And I'm sorry for my disgusting nails here. So I just poured some into a measuring jug and added a little bit at a time. And the reason why you want to use surgical spirit or rubbing alcohol is because it will evaporate and it won't do any damage to the product. So I'm just adding a little bit at a time, and you kind of wanted to make it like a wet paste. You don't want it too wet, but you don't want it too dry, because if it's too dry it will just crumple. If it's too wet, then it will go everywhere. But the alcohol in, like the ethanol is alcohol, so it will evaporate. So don't worry about it actually ruining the product. I was scared of that, but this is why I'm trying it out for you guys and showing you that it's fine. So once I got this sort of wet paste going with it, I just spooned it in back into the pan, and I tried to get as much out as possible. Looking back on this one now, it was probably a little too dry. It could have done with literally just like another drop of it, but I just grabbed a knife and I'm just going to be spreading that out as evenly as I can in the pan. A knife is just so much easier to use because it makes sure everything's flat and everything. We basically want to try and make this as it was. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I'm a perfectionist, so I tried my best. And yeah, just try and get all of the little bits that are left in the pan, because it will make your life so much easier than trying to like scrimp and scrape at the sides. So I'm literally like taking every bit of product I can and putting it back into the pan. And then just smooth it out to the best of your ability. It may take a little while, but just be patient with it. As you are sort of moulding it, you will notice that the alcohol in it has already started to evaporate, so it starts to get a little bit harder to mould. Once I've done that, I got some kitchen paper or just any sort of like absorbent paper. Don't use toilet tissue because it will just flake off and then you will ruin it. So what I do is I just lay a bit on and pop my palm on it and press down lightly, and then take it off and then use another clean bit on there. And I kept going until I couldn't really see much sort of product transfer anymore, so I could sort of tell that I had got majority of the excess ethanol and surgical spirit out. And then I just did that for the rest of them, so I crushed it up, added in some surgical spirit, and I believe it's the same as rubbing alcohol. In the UK we called it surgical spirit, and I believe in the US and elsewhere you guys call it rubbing alcohol. This one was a little bit more wet, and it was much easier to sort of mould with, but it just took a lot longer to dry, so just keep going with it. The last one was a mimosa, and I added way too much surgical spirit in. As you can see, it's really, really liquid, but it's okay. You just have to be very careful when you're patting it down, and it will just take a little bit longer, but it's no harm done. Just try not to add too much, As you can see, mine is like so, I didn't even need to do much with a knife because I could just pat it and it would go. So instead of actually using my palm for the first couple of times, I just sort of lightly laid it over there and it absorbed it straight away. And then as I started to absorb more of the alcohol out, I could press down a little bit more. But just be super careful with this. You can always add, but you can't take away. Then I just cleaned up the palette, so I just got some sort of wet kitchen roll, and I used a kabuki brush to wipe it all down, and I also washed the little plastic cover that came with it. And then all that's left to do is to pop your pans back in the palette. I recommend putting this in sort of sunlight for as much as you can. I would say probably like 48 hours to completely dry. It may kind of smell like the rubbing alcohol and surgical spirit, but it will go off eventually. But this is an amazing way to just fix your broken compacts, and this will work on powder, anything powder, but I'm just showing you that my highlights still work after this, and this wasn't completely dry either, so I shouldn't worry too much about it breaking it, especially with an expensive palette like Anastasia Beverly Hills. Also, I'm including this in my 1,000 subscriber giveaway if you guys are watching this when it's still open. So be sure to head over and check that out, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!